What's up, Fight fans? I'm Ben Bartels, and welcome to the 27th episode of Cage Talk, your one-stop shop to hear all your UFC and fight news updates you're going to need weekly. Today, we're going to be talking about the insane UFC Paris card that happened last weekend, looking over the UFC Noche card this upcoming weekend, and the incredibly hyped boxing super fight that is Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Terrance Crawford. So let's get to it. Stay tuned. Starting off with UFC Paris, an amazing card. One of the best cards, definitely maybe one of the best fight nights of all time. 11 finishes in 13 fights, and even the decisions were pretty fun. So let's get down to the card that was insane. UFC Paris, France. All the UFC France fighters won in the main card. All five: Umar Sy, William Gomis, Imavov, Mason Jones, and someone else. In the main event, Nassourdine Imavov pieced out Caio Borralho to a close 50-45 decision. Now, 50-45 screams dominant, right? It means you won every single round, but closely in this scenario. If you can recall back to the days of Davison Figueiredo versus Peter Yan, that was a 50-45, 49-46-ish decision. Very dominant for Peter Yan, but another very close fight. Every round was highly competitive, but every round went to one fighter. That's what this kind of looks like. Every round went to Nassourdine Imavov, but it was a very close fight. And, Imavov did poke Caio Borralho's eyes about 3 times in the fight. Definitely should have gotten a point taken away. I see people screaming, draw maybe, 48-47 decision for Nassourdine Imavov. If you take away a point for eye poke, Caio Borralho should have scored a draw there. I think either way, I don't think Caio Borralho really showed that he's better than Nassourdine Imavov. But regardless, Caio Borralho still showed great performance, a lot of toughness, great cardio. Not the best offensive grappling in the world, but he's still, that grappling wizard we all know him to be. In the co-main event, Benoit Saint-Denis fraud checked as a fraud Mauricio Rufy. Now, what I mean by that is Benoit Saint-Denis was a prospect back in the day. He was on a 5-fight win streak. He comes across Dustin Poirier, gets fraud checked, comes across Renato Moicano after, gets double fraud checked, and now he's fighting Mauricio Rufy off a close win over a no-name fighter. And he absolutely dominated Mauricio Rufy. Mauricio Rufy was a very promising prospect coming into this fight, one of the best prospects the UFC lightweight division had, and BSD completely shut him off with one of the best game plans I've ever seen against a striker. He just kept spamming body kicks, spamming head kicks, went for the takedowns, and eventually neck cranked Mauricio Rufy to a submission win. In the feature fight, Mason Jones had a very good old-fashioned slobber knocker of a fight against Balaji Oki, getting dropped in the first round only to drop Oki in the second round and get a second-round TKO. His fights, man, are just incredible. His last fight against Jeremy Stevens was an absolute banger. I don't think he's going to be like champion, top 5, 10 caliber anytime soon, but he is definitely one of those fighters that when you see on a main card, you're like, oh my God, I have to tune in to this fight. All of his fights are just insane. He's definitely one of those like modern gladiator kind of fighters. I'm really liking Mason Jones right now. Not necessarily skill-wise, but entertainment-wise, he's up there. We also had Lopes not fight on this card. He was supposed to fight against Patricio Pitbull to open up the main card. He missed weight by 3 pounds and thus had his debut fight canceled and was fired. Really fumbled the bag there, I'm not going to lie. That's really depressing to see. I was really hyped on Lopes. He's known as like the Panther, he fights like Ilia Topuria, he fights like Khalil Roundtree, people who owe other people money. He beats up on people. It's crazy he fights with such aggression. But you can't miss weight on your debut, especially if you're fighting a top 10 guy like Patricio Pitbull. He was given a step up immediately walking into the UFC to really breathe life into that featherweight division. That's kind of lacking it right now. Not so much anymore with Lerone Murphy, but he was definitely meant to get in there and have a good performance. And I thought he was going to have one. He missed weight though. Patricio Pitbull didn't. Patricio Pitbull rightfully didn't fight. Sorry, as he's fighting for legacy. But, Lopes, you can't miss weight on your debut, and he got fired. So hopefully in a win or two, he's back. I really want to see him fight in the UFC someday. In the prelims, Ante Delija knocked out Marcin Tybura in the first round. And finally, someone got past the test that is Marcin Tybura. A breath of fresh air in the heavyweight division with all 3 of Delija's nipples on full display. Delija all jokes aside, looked absolutely incredible in this fight. I thought he was going to lose. I thought Marcin Tybura was going to grapple him to a win. Ante Delija came out guns blazing, knocked him out in the first round. Marcin Tybura didn't really look that great, but how can you with a guy blitzing you like that? Delija looked incredible. I'm super excited. Maybe he could fight Curtis Blades. I've seen that fight get thrown around. Love to see that. Delija looking like a true top contender in there, though. Super excited what his future looks like. Finally, the last fight I want to talk about on this card is Andreas Gustafsson versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. Andreas Gustafsson, man. He was rightfully, I mean, honestly, I picked Rinat Fakhretdinov, and if I remember correctly, I did. I might have picked Gustafsson and changed my mind. But either way, Rinat Fakhretdinov was initially, when this fight started, a favorite. Gustafsson then closed to a slight favorite for whatever reason, but Gustafsson came out there, really showed his Juliana Pena level striking, if you know what I mean. He really just had no defense, just threw caution to the wind, crossing his feet, looked like Dricus du Plessis in the striking out there. I mean, he really fumbled over his feet in the striking there, and he looked terrible. Rinat Fakhretdinov kind of just, it wasn't one specific shot, but it was like a flurry of 10, 20 shots that kind of just finished Andreas Gustafsson. He crumpled next to the cage, and within a minute, Rinat Fakhretdinov actually had a legitimate win coming off those bad decision losses, or wins against Carlos Leal and Nicholas Dalby. So, Rinat Fakhretdinov, please give him a ranked opponent now. He's on a 6-fight win streak, I guess, in the UFC. He should be fighting ranked opponents for a while now, but, give him a ranked opponent. He's up there. Moving on to the next Saturday, or this Saturday, UFC Fight Night, UFC Noche. Honestly, when you look at it name-wise, it's a pretty mediocre card. The main event is incredible. I love Rob Font in the co-main. I absolutely love him. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He's one of those vets I just love to see fight. Good scraps, but name-wise, it's kind of lacking, man. I mean, main event, Jean Silva versus Diego Lopes is absolutely an incredible fight. I know the fighting nerds aren't really looking the best right now. You just had Mauricio Rufy lose. You've had Kyle Barallo lose both last weekend. You've had Carlos Prates lose to Ian Gary, but he's, bounced back with a knockout win over Jeff Neal, as I'm wearing his shirt right now. But Jean Silva, I think of all the fighting nerds, pound for pound, is the most skilled fighting nerd. I think it goes Jean Silva. I think it goes Carlos Prates, Caio Baralho, Mauricio Rufy. Mauricio Rufy is really lacking any sort of fundamentals, and that's kind of why BSD beat him. Caio Baralho is a very well-balanced fighter. He can grapple well, he can strike well, but he's not really great at anything, so you can outkill him if you're like an Imavov who's a great striker, and I think you can out-wrestle him if you're like a Chimaev with great wrestling. Carlos Prates, not the most well-rounded, but a very, very technical Muay Thai fighter, has some incredible takedown defense he showed in the Ian Gary fight, which is a very underrated aspect of his game. He has very good trips, very good elbows, knees, everything. He's a super dangerous fighter, but I think you can outpoint him to his decision if you mix in the grappling, if he comes across a really well-balanced fighter, which I'm going to talk about maybe in the next episode, about a fight that recently got added to UFC 322 in Madison Square Garden. But let me not get ahead of myself. Jean Silva is the best fighting nerd. I think he's the most well-rounded. I think he, pound for pound, might be the heaviest hitter. I think he has amazing submissions, great stand-up, and he's going to be fighting Diego Lopes this Saturday. And honestly, I got to go Jean Silva here. I know the fighting nerds haven't been looking too good, but Jean Silva is so incredibly technical. He just submitted Bryce Mitchell at his own game, kind of beat him worse than Ilya Topuria did, if you ask me. And Diego Lopes is incredibly wild, incredibly heavy hitting, incredibly dangerous, both on the feet and on the ground, but I think Jean Silva has the tools to get it done. I'm going to say Jean Silva by 3rd round knockout. In the co-main event, you have Rob Font versus David Martinez. This was supposed to be Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr., but Raul Rosas Jr. pulled out due to an injury. It is what it is. I would love to see that fight. Rob Font, fraud check Raul Rosas Jr. But, Rob Font versus David Martinez is a great scrap. I love that good stand-up fight, unless Rob Font makes in the grappling, which I think he should. And, man, I love Rob Font. You guys know this. I've been watching his fights for a long time, ever since Maurice. He knocked out Maurice back in the day. That was a good knockout. But either way, I love Rob Font, but, I kind of have to take David Martinez here. He's one of those surging prospects that you just can envision in the top 15 now. You know, he's known, his nickname is the Surgeon. He's very sharp, incredibly powerful, and an amazing striker. And I think, you know, Rob Font, he might be reaching the tail end of his career, especially after this fight. I'm going to go Martinez by decision because Font is so tough. I can't see Martinez knocking him out. I can see it, but I think it's unlikely. Moving on. Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon in the feature fight. I don't care what people have to say. I'm going Jared Gordon by decision. Rafa Garcia took Vince Pichel to a decision in his last time out. He's very powerful. He's very fast. I know some people might actually be picking Jared Gordon, but I could totally see Jared Gordon just kind of clinching him, grinding him to a gritty, close decision win. Moving on. Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I just can't pick Stoltzfus, man. I mean, if this was prime Gastelum, this wouldn't even be a competition, but I think Gastelum can still, at his age and at his current rate of schedule, I think he can still outspeed, out-technique, and out-tough Stoltzfus to a decision win. I got to go Kelvin Gastelum there by decision. Finally, I want to talk about Anthony Hernandez versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. This is like one of those like low-key kind of banger fights, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be so good, and I feel like I had to take Anthony Hernandez there. You know, every card I feel like there's always that one prelim fight that's like two no-names that you just know are going to go to war and it's going to be like contender for fight of the night, but they never get it because they're not big names. Regardless, I have to go Anthony Hernandez here. He's incredibly active and so fast. He showed that in his last fight against Chase Hooper in spades. Yes, I know Carlos Diego Ferreira is a lot bigger and very underrated, and he has a lot of good performances, and Mateusz Rebecki comes to mind. He really shut him down. But honestly, he's really showed some wrestling weaknesses in his last fight against Grant Dawson. And not only do I think Anthony Hernandez can outspeed Pereira on the feet, but I think he can outmuscle him on the ground. I'm going to go Anthony Hernandez by like a round 1 or 2 knockout TKO on the ground, maybe. Moving on to the highly anticipated boxing fight, one of the biggest boxing fights of the century, as the promotion likes to call it, is Terrance "Bud" Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. This fight is kind of weird to me because it's promoted by UFC. It's going to be on Netflix. I'm super excited for it. But I don't really see where the competitive factor comes into play. Canelo, if you think about it, is so much bigger. Crawford is moving up 2 weight classes. He's never even fought at 160 pounds, let alone 168. He's jumping up 2 weight classes, and he's fighting the undisputed champ. It's not like usually when fighters move up in weight, they have, you know, lighter man skill. You know, they're able to like outspeed and out-technique bigger fighters. But Canelo Alvarez is one of the most skilled fighters we've ever seen in boxing. So I don't know if that competitive skill factor is going to be there. And if you look at both their styles, I gotta take Canelo here. I mean, Terrance Crawford's known for breaking fighters down. He will bully them to a late round TKO, KO, and break you. And you know, there's a chance that maybe he gasses out a super big Canelo compared to him through sheer activity and volume. But Terrance Crawford, man, he loves to play in the fire. He loves to throw tight hooks, and I don't think you can do that against someone 2 weight classes up you. Now, unless he changes his style drastically, I just don't see how this fight's going to be competitive. Canelo Alvarez is going to be too big. He's going to be too powerful. He's going to outmuscle him in the clinch and tight ranges. His foot hooks and uppercuts, he has some of the best in the sport. He has incredible cardio. Still at the top of his game. I mean, he hasn't really showed any like weaknesses against Berlanga or Munguia. And, you know, he's just been showing incredible fight IQ and technique. And I know Terrance Crawford is an elite fighter. If he wins this, he's definitely up there for one of the GOATs of our generation and of all time in boxing. But if you look at it realistically, Canelo has every advantage in the book, and I can't pick Terrance Crawford for any reason other than there's a chance that he wins. And I can't pick fighters off a chance. You know, I got to go off what I know, off what the stats tell me, and everything is leaning into Canelo's favor. Now, I know Terrance Crawford is one of those fighters that if you say he can't do something, you know, he's got to go do it. And I respect that. But, man, I got to go Canelo here, you know? And that's all we have for you guys. Be sure to check out other episodes on FHNtoday.com and FHNtoday on Spotify. Drop a comment below on your picks for the big boxing fight and the UFC fights happening this weekend. Once again, I'm Ben Bartels, signing off.